segment 5, the two visions and the nature of the campaign. Again, I begin by quoting from A Conflict of Visions. Those with a constrained vision have tended to be less concerned with promoting economic and social equality, but more concerned with the dangers of an inequality of power, producing an articulate, ruling elite of rationalists, close quote. That gets to Bill Buckley's famous quotation about he'd rather be ruled by the first 2,000 names in the Boston phone book than by the Harvard faculty. That's the point, right?
Yes.
If you perform a Google search on Obama plus the word professorial, you'll get more than 62,000 hits. What does that suggest to you? What's going on here?
We need to go to the phone book.
Where the wise, again, I'm quoting from A Conflict of Visions, where the wise and conscientious individual is conceived to be competent to shape outcomes directly. This is the unconstrained vision.
Yes.
I, Barack Obama, know what's best for you. This is the way you put it a moment ago. Then his sincerity is crucial. Sincerity is so central to an unconstrained vision that it is not readily conceded to adversaries, close quote.
That goes back at least 200 years. That people who have the constrained vision understand that people will make mistakes. And so therefore when someone says something they disagree with, that to them is just one of the examples of it. They see no need to question his sincerity or honesty or whatever. But for those with the unconstrained vision, what they believe seems so obviously true that if you're standing in the way of it, either you must be incredibly stupid, utterly uninformed, or simply dishonest.
Let me read you a few of the terms that have been used to describe Sarah Palin. Liar, Andrew Sullivan. Cancer, David Brooks.
Oh, yes.
Jesus freak, Bill Mayer. Reactionary, Katha Pollitt. Zealot, Maureen Dowd. Is that part of what's going on here?
Yes, yes. People like that find it very hard to believe that someone else could honestly, sincerely, and intelligently reach a different conclusion. They talk about how complex the world is, but it never seems to be complex enough that other people could have read the same evidence they've looked at and come up with a different conclusion.
Mm. The implicit visions, again, you write in your conclusion, divide controversialists at all levels and across the boundaries of the law, the economy, and the society, close quote. The constrained vision versus the unconstrained vision. How is an informed American to choose between those two visions?
I suppose it would require thinking about it, first of all, which is what a lot of people don't do anymore. I mean, there are people who simply react because they like the way someone sounds, and unfortunately, more and more such people vote.
So it's a question of education?
In one sense, yes. In another sense, no. I think before so many people went to colleges and universities, common sense was probably much more widespread.
Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? We keep coming back to higher education as a kind of pollutant in the American political system. That's been a theme of our conversation. Why? What's going on?
That's a tough one. That's my next book, which is about intellectuals.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. But
what have you found? What conclusions have you reached so far?
That all the incentives are for people who are intellectuals in the sense in which I would define the term, to venture beyond what they are competent to do. That is, we know that who's the man at MIT who's the linguist? Noam Chomsky.
Oh, Noam Chomsky.
We know the man is a landmark figure in the study of linguistics.
Yes.
But we would never have heard of him if he stuck to linguistics.
True enough.
We know that our wonderful colleague, Mr. Ehrlich, is
Paul Ehrlich here at Stanford.
Yes, has a reputation in entomology. But we would never have heard of him if he had stuck to entomology. And so all the incentives are to go beyond what you're competent to deal with, and to just assume that because you're wonderful at this, that this makes you sort of a general philosopher king.
All right. If the current polls hold, the Wall Street Journal, I'm quoting the Wall Street Journal now, declared in an editorial last week, Barack Obama will win the White House on November 4th, and Democrats will consolidate their congressional majorities. Though we doubt, most Americans realize it, the journal continues, this would be one of the most profound political and ideological shifts in U.S. history, close quote. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And the repercussions extend, the fact that they will create disasters in the economy, I think will pale by comparison to what they will do in terms of countries acquiring nuclear weapons and turning those over to terrorists, which is the point of no return once that happens.
Right, right. I was talking about this with a colleague of ours the other day, Tom McCurdy, who's an economist here at the Hoover Institution, and Tom said, well, remember what happened when Bill Clinton became president. His point is the American people are about to get an extreme illustration of the way government intervention messes things up. Bill Clinton offered only a mild illustration, and yet even under Bill Clinton, it was only 2 years before there was enough of a backlash response that Republicans took both houses of Congress away, and the man was boxed in from that point forward. That's a pretty optimistic reading of what might happen. In fact,
very
it's about
optimistic.
Very optimistic.
Yes, because there is such a thing as a point of no return, and if in those first 2 years Iran gets nuclear weapons, we will be at that point of no return, and the next generation will live under that same threat and as far out as the eye can see. And so, sometimes people who are very clever say it's just as well to let these guys get in there and discredit themselves.
Right.
Then we'll win on the backlash. People said that when Hitler was arising in Germany, and many of those people who said that died in the concentration camps. Which is a smaller tragedy than a nation dying in a sense.
Before the primaries had ended, you wrote, Hillary Clinton versus John McCain. I wouldn't know whether to vote Libertarian or move to Australia. Now we know it's Barack Obama versus John McCain. You'll vote for John McCain, but hold your nose. What's your fundamental?
Yes, the difference is that the Clintons had the saving grace of utter lack of principle, which meant that when they saw which way the political winds were blowing, that's the way they'd go, regardless of what they'd been saying before. This man has been a far-left ideologue for 20 years, and not just a matter of ideology. I mean, people who are truly vile people. We're not talking about just people who have a certain theory.
Bill Ayers,
I mean, Acorn. I'm talking thuggery as the way to get your ideas across. Father Flagle. You go down the list. I judge people by what they've done, not by what they say, particularly when what they say is the direct opposite of what they've done. So that, no, I think this man really does believe that he can change the world. And people like that are infinitely more dangerous than mere crooked politicians.
Final question. Let's suppose that the Wall Street Journal is right. Let's suppose that Barack Obama wins and that the Democrats increase their majorities in both the House and the Senate. Let's suppose all of that. What would be your advice to young people dedicated to free markets, individual liberty, and broadly speaking to the constrained vision that you write about in A Conflict of Visions? What do you do if something like this happens?
You do whatever you find you can do under those conditions, which you can only learn by experience. But it's a little like saying, what advice do you give to someone on death row when they come to take them down to the gas chamber?
Tom, I'm trying very hard here to find a question to end the show on an up, but I don't seem to. I don't seem to be succeeding.
Well, one good thing is that economists' predictions have been proven wrong before, and you can always hope that this one will be one of those many predictions.
Right. Dr. Thomas Sowell, author of A Conflict of Visions and author of the forthcoming second edition of another classic book you wrote, Applied Economics. This will be out in January.
Yes.
Dr. Thomas Sowell, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For Uncommon Knowledge, I'm Peter Robinson. Thanks for joining us.
This is the Vorthos Forum, and we approve this message.